Hey everyone, it's your boy Ash, and I'm looking at Bleeding Fool article written by Trajan channel. My boy Trajan, about to roast him. No, well, maybe a roast him. I'm not really good at roasting, but I want to read his article. Congrats Trajan on getting that published there on an actually respectable comics media site. He's talking about DC's New Age of Heroes, which is also something that's very kind of dear to me in the comics. I'm partial towards it. So let's see what he talks about. I'm just going to kind of read through this and bore you to tears. Actually, if you're bored to tears, you can blame Trajan. So he writes, ranking DC Comics New Age of Heroes. For all intents and purposes, the New Age of Heroes line by DC Comics was an extremely ambitious project that could be argued was doomed for failure. In a time period where comic book sales across the board are doing poorly, where 25,000 units shipped is considered respectable among big-name franchises, the New Age of Heroes idea was completely unlike anything tried in recent memory. That's true. I don't think anything's been tried like this since Marvel did New Universe. With a focus on the art, and DC assembled for... With a focus on the art, DC assembled creative teams for 8 new comic projects, 7 ongoing titles, and 1 miniseries. The idea was that the line would spin out of the commercial success of DC Metal event in 2017 and would focus on returning relatively forgotten characters and bringing forth new ones into the DC world. As a whole, it's not a stretch to say that the entire line has been a critical success. Multiple books have proven to be exceptionally popular among social media savvy comic fans, with a myriad of pull list hashtags boasting photos of comics like Silencer and Sideways, even though sales seem to be settling for most books around the 16,000 unit mark. That seems fair. I kind of agree with him here, except I think it's Silencer and until it got canceled, Immortal Men. This, I'm not sure if he put this in here or editorial put this in here. I guess it's to illustrate the media savvy. Cool. I think the whole Scott Snyder part should have been left out, though. I think that's a little bit slanted. Not a year since the launch of the first Age of Heroes book, Damage, we are at a point where most of the books have passed the 5-issue line, and we can look back and finally rank the books for what they are, from best to worst. Starting with Must Check Out. So it looks like he's going to have these are the top books. Number 1, Silencer. Silencer has not only been a runaway critical success of the New Age of Heroes, but it pulled off with multiple creative teams. Sorry, I read that poorly. Not only is Silencer the best in terms of story, it's a Taken-style story about a former assassin attempting to get out of the life, with opposing forces attempting to drag her back in. But it also seems like Marvel's wet dream. A female Polynesian assassin who is a badass and has a stupid name Honor. Is that really stupid? I mean, one of the most famous female protagonists in sci-fi books is Honor Harrington. I guess maybe I've heard the name before. It doesn't seem that... It does kind of sound weird, I guess. Yeah. It's not a stupid name, just poor choice name, I guess I might say. The key with this story is that the focus isn't on how great or badass the protagonist is. Instead, the writers leverage the outside world and the opposing assassin groups within the underworld as the catalyst of the drama, so the crux of the tension is on Honor protecting her family from both outside violence and also from her secret. Throw in Talia al Ghul and a war within the League of Assassins, and you have the making for great lore. I agree. She's also the first New Age character to get crossover within the mainstream universe, appearing in the upcoming Nightwing 44 and 45. I believe she also... Oh, she didn't appear in Batman. I think Batman appeared in her book. But technically it's also a crossover with Batman. Such a great story, and it gets my highest recommendation of anything on the list. If you're only looking to check out one book, make it Silencer. It is a good book. Don't think it's quite as lofty as a lot of people make it out to be. It is good. I cannot stand her costume. Forget Honor. I think her costume is one of the worst designed costumes history. And this isn't even the bad part. She normally has a little flappy lid thing here, like a baseball cap type. It just looks terrible. But, that can always be changed. Iron Man started off with a stupid costume. A lot of characters start off with stupid costumes. One thing I want to critique about this book, I don't really like the whole she's protecting her family from a secret or whatever. I think that works for one movie, like True Lies. True Lies is one of my favorite movies of all time. The best action comedy movie ever, True Lies. And the whole thing with Arnold trying to pretend that he's an insurance salesman or something, like vacuum sale. I forget what he was. And his family's like, okay. And it's and all this shit's happening around and he's trying to keep his wife, duped. That works for a single story. And even in that story, she had to be led on. This stringing along this character of having a secret identity and her family doesn't know. Number one, I don't know. My personal subjective taste is that you and your spouse, your marriage, you need to be open. You can't have secrets. That's not what marriage is about. So that kind of bothers me that that she's constantly lying to her husband. I know it's to protect him and stuff, but still, it seems. The other thing, dang it. What was I going to say? The other thing that bothered me, I kind of lost my train of thought when I was going on that rant. But it is a good book. I just wish, I don't know, I think that bogs it down. I just want to see her be more like a superhero. Maybe I'll have this thing where she exposes herself and he figures out and she can just go, or they'll do the tragic route where family dies and she becomes more of the Batman type villain or superheroes. A lot of places you can go with this character. And I like that she's a street level type character that's not spawned from the Bat family, even though it's related with Talia al Ghul. It's so refreshing not to see some Bat symbol here. Moving on. The Terrifics. I really regret not trying this book out. The Terrifics benefit from two major things. First, Mr. Terrific is a cult favorite. Wherever he appears, people follow, and the third smartest man in the DC universe has proven time and time again that he can solidly anchor a team book. Second, audiences thirst for a Fantastic Four type book that Marvel refused to publish, either because Marvel hates families or Marvel hates money, you decide, was answered with this. It's a weirdly put sentence. I wouldn't have done that. I also think it feels a little slanted attacking Marvel, even though I personally agree. The article feels not neutral. The Terrific reads like a classic Silver Age comic, and that's a breath of fresh air where certain comic companies release 50 comics a month of derivative work, where the only difference is the name of the hero. There's both an overarching storyline, and most issues also have an issue-specific storyline, so you can start at issue 3 and enjoy it as both a single issue and the larger part of the mythos. Not to mention, the character work is amazing. Each character is fully fleshed out. Each character has clearly defined goals and desires, and each character, most importantly, has clear flaws. The titular character having the brunt of it. You haven't lived until you've seen the true price that Plastic Man pays for being Plastic Man, and the relationship breakdowns and desperate struggles to keep everything together works really well with these characters. It's refreshing seeing heroes struggle when most comic books greet us with characters who get everything handed to them, and their biggest struggle is that they were called a mean name online. Yeah, The Terrifics is worth picking up, especially if you're longing for a good team book and beyond surface level interpersonal engagements. That's another thing. This book is now penciled by Patrick Zurcher, who is an a-hole and a bully and tried to help destroy alternate comics, and I will not buy this book because of that, no matter how good it is. If you have your own scruples. Take that into consideration. I will not support that. I just can't. I'm sorry. It sucks. It makes me angry because the book actually was good. I wish I could like it. I wish I could like Patrick Zircher. I wish he would keep his mouth shut, just draw comics and be a professional. But the industry has to be full of shitheads. So I'm thinking about picking up Triffics. It's not too far back to maybe pick up the back issues. I hear great things about this, and I trust Trajan. I don't know why, because I often always give him shit for what I think he's way off base. But no, he's got good taste. I really do follow his channel. I'm a fan. Damage. I love Damage. Trajan, not me. I do actually. I like what I've seen. It's a comic that knows what it is. Big, dumb, action-packed, with enough of a story to keep you hooked. Room for deep lore and doesn't bog the action down with superfluous dialogue. Damage is DC's answer to the Hulk, and it does a great job. Ethan Avery is a soldier who signed up for the U.S. Super Soldier program, and he can transform into Damage for 1 hour with a 24-hour cooldown. This is one thing I like least about Damage, is his origin. I just hate this lazy origin of like, oh, we're the army and we're trying to create super soldiers. It worked with Captain America because it was back in the 40s and we had this neat idea like, oh, we created this crazy serum. We tested it on one kid and it worked. But oh, shoot, the scientist who made it died and there weren't any other... It was kind of a goofy thing and we've never been able to replicate it. And I'm actually kind of cool with like super soldier programs. I like the Weapon X idea, although that's gotten way out of control. The original just Weapon X when it was Wolverine was cool, and now it's like half the Marvel Universe is a Weapon X, and now they have a Weapon H, which is... Don't even get me started. Anyways, I just don't like this idea. First of all, if you know anything about the military, they're idiots. They don't have the technology. The reason why the U.S. military is the most advanced military in the world is because of private companies, not because of the government. The military does not experiment and go things. This would come out of some Lex Luthor experiment. Now, that would make sense if Lex Luthor was experimenting with, like, Kryptonian, genetics and different things, and he came up with something. That might make more sense, DC. This was lazy, and then it also, why isn't the army making just millions of these guys? If the army has this technology, there's not just one, So that annoys me. I don't like lazy origins like that make me have to think. And I also don't like iPads sometimes. Apple, you suck so bad. Even though there's some great things about the iPad. I mean, 12-inch screen is marvelous. But so, back to what we were talking about. So yeah, that's my problem. It's so annoying. Like, everything else though, it's fun. I read the first issue. Well written, even though it is like he talks about the simplified, it doesn't feel dumb. So it's a simple story, revolves around Ethan running away from the military. The military chases him, and as of now, he's taking a tour of the DC universe, interacting with different B and C level heroes and villains, and trying to discover how he can better control his power. I think it's a great setup for a character like this, who's a hulkish, he's causing a lot of damage, so he's going to run into heroes. Then he also runs into villains, because he hopefully is supposed to be kind of a hero. There's a lot you can do with this, and you can have fun with it. And, yeah. The art is gorgeous, and it's obvious that this is the main focus, but Robert Venditti's bare-bones story is no slouch. No issue feels forced or feels like filler. Something always happens that organically drives the story forward. It's easy for books like this to feel like it's just jumping from set piece to set piece, but Damage effectively balances the explosive art with enough story that Damage reads quickly and efficiently. The big downfall is that it feels like there's a solid ending for it. The story being told can only end a few ways and most of them involve the series ending, but that's okay. Part of the fun Damage is seeing him go from particular locale to familiar locale and seeing how this complete behemoth of a wrecking machine interacts with characters that we love. I can see this going for 12 to 16 issues. And ending, but definitely think it's worth the jump on for the ride. This is one thing I always disagree with Trajan. He always looks at these books and feels like, it's going to end. His was like one of his big problems with Immortal Men. It's like, no, this could go on forever. I mean, you could say the same thing about the Hulk. Like, why does Damage have to? I don't see why Damage has to end. Any superhero you tell an origin story can just have an end, but it also can go on indefinitely. You just suspend that ending and just let the character interact in the universe. All right, Sideways. There's a book that I had never had any interest in, partly due to the creators. Sideways was supposed to be DC's answer to Spider-Man that we all know and love. Sideways is about a brash, shy teenager who is a friend who may or not have who has a friend who he may or may not have a crush on, a mother who works for a shady corporation, and is basically about growing up and learning responsibility and duty by making mistakes and learning from them. The book is well written for the most part, and the art ranges from good to gorgeous. Even the worst art looks good, and it's really evocative of teenage life. There are two gripes with Sideways. The first is that the story tends to be rather predictable. As soon as you find that the mother works for a massively shady company, it's quick to deduce that the company has something to do with Sideways' powers, and you can tell something untoward is going to happen to her. They telegraph every plot point. But that's kind of the charm of Sideways. It's solid storytelling, with one exception. By the way, I believe this is still all part of the like must-buys, his top choices. Issue 5 had a villain that was representative of an internet troll in real life. This villain had a power that he could whip up into people in a frenzy by the sound of his voice and cause people to wreak mayhem wherever he is. Get it? Because trolls influence the listeners to do things that they otherwise would not, and therefore they should be silenced so that people can live and enjoy the internet in peace. Or something. This is the weakest issue on the whole run, and if you read every issue in a row, it's startling how out of place issue 5 feels. Almost like it was written in response to something happening in writer Justin Jordan's life. But that's just speculation. Oh yeah, Justin Jordan did this. This is why I didn't get this book. Sideways is for the most part fun. It's a type of book I would like to see a child of mine read. I used to love it, but issue 5 pulled me out of it, and the current run is a bit unwieldy, but definitely graduates past Spider-Man clone. Derek James, the main character, is a lot of fun and he's absolutely relatable to the vast majority of people, unlike CEO millionaire Peter Parker. So quickly, Justin Jordan is the gatekeeping asshole that was partnered with artist Donald DeLay. They have done one previous work together on Image called Love and something or other. I can't remember the name off the top of my head. I apologize. They had a second book that they were working on that looked even better. My understanding that Donald had about 5 months worth of work on the art, penciled, inked, and colored. I've seen large samples of it. And during this whole craze online and this whole Comicsgate fiasco, of which Justin Jordan is a big enemy of, Donald sought to look into it because he didn't really understand Comicsgate or what was going on. He's not a big-time artist or anything. He's kind of an up-and-comer trying to get his name out there. And he, like a rational human being, rather than to say, oh, you say these are evil shitheads? Well, okay, then you must be right, and I will just take your word for it and judge people as evil shitheads and treat them as evil shitheads and not get their story. So he decided to just kind of look into it, get it from the horse's mouth, and surprise, he didn't find the evil shitheads because it's all a bunch of lies. So his crime actually was not saying, or saying that he did not think Diversity in Comics, Richard Meyer, was the monster that everyone made him out to be. That's all he did. Now, previous to this, Richard Meyer saw that Donald was following him, and Richard actually warned him, said, look, just stop following me. I appreciate you're trying to be friendly, and I appreciate you're trying to get both sides. Like, it was like understanding. He said, but just forget, it's not worth it. It's not worth your career. You know, I applaud you, but I don't want you to harm yourself. To which Donald was like, well, if that's how they really would treat me, then F them. Like, because he didn't believe Richard, like, that they would actually do, like, people would actually be that terrible, right? Richard's making like, no, if you even talk to me, they're going to blackball you from the industry. And he was like, yeah, right. Which is what they all say, right? Yeah, right, that doesn't happen. So sure enough, he says this, instantly he gets dropped from this partnership with Justin, dropped off the book. All the work that he did, no pay for, nothing. Book's never going to see the light of day. And everyone in the big modern mainstream comics industry, he's now blacklisted. And for a while, he wasn't sure how he's going to, put food on his table. He's a comic book artist, and he basically took out his bread and butter. And, I am one of those people. I'm a comics person. I support it because of things like this. And I listen to here and I hear these SJWs all the time tell me, no, that doesn't ever happen. We're the good guys. Bull. And this is exactly what. And even Donald was like, these guys, that doesn't happen. And then he saw it happen to him. And now, of course, since it has happened to him and they have trying to ruin his life, he's not very pleasant with these guys, as you can imagine, which, of course, they turn around and try to use that as an excuse and be like, yep, see, look, this is an asshole that ruined his own career. No, you ruined his career, and now he treats you like an asshole because of that. They try to reverse it. It's so sickening. And Justin Jordan is the kingpin of it all. Asshole number one. Won't support this guy. He was bad even before, but that sealed the deal. So I will not buy anything Justin Jordan. Yeah, that was a long rant. Sorry. Decent reads. Damn you, Trajan. This is the best book. This is the best. This was their creme de la creme, and Trajan just didn't appreciate it. I mean, appreciated it a little bit. He gave it a decent read recommendation. All right. Immortal Man is going to be remembered as the greatest waste of potential of all time. It's a little hyperbolic, but okay. Originally supposed to be a Jim Lee drawn ongoing. Fudging there. They announced Jim Lee was going to be on when it launched. They never announced he was going to just ongoing draw it. I think people tried to read into that wishful thinking, and then when they didn't get it, they're like, wait a second, but it was never promised that. He did the first issue and then handed it off, which gave it an aura of protection. The book was canceled prematurely, ending with issue number 6, and it's painfully obvious that it wasn't supposed to end there. Issues 1 through 5 are a great display of a slow burn storytelling with fantastic cast of characters, and then in issue 6, it sweeps the rug out from under you. I said this in my review, actually, that he was wrong about this. Issue number 6 is so rushed and blue balls you with the big money fight that they were setting up between the two coolest characters in the book, all because it was canceled. And it ends with the super cheesy "the end" nonsense that denotes bad and uncreative ending. I wish they would have kept Immortal Man. Me too. It's good. What I tried to convince Trajan about was that this book wasn't an end. They canceled this book at issue 4. By that time, number 6 was already ready to go. It's done. It's in the can. There was no changing it. At issue number 4, they're like, yeah, we're not going to go past 6. 5 and 6 then come out, on their monthly cycle. But the storyline wasn't changed. If you read issue number 6, it reads as if an issue 7 were forthcoming. So his interpretation is kind of accurate in the sense that it feels weird, but that's because the end ? That's because you were we're supposed to get a 7. Where do we go next? Well, issue 7 will show you where their new direction goes. Except there is no issue 7. So when you look at it as a miniseries, then yes, it feels really weird, except it never was intended to be that. So I read it as if you watch a TV show and they don't renew the next season. So whatever the last season is you watched, that's kind of what this is. It's okay, that's the end because it wasn't the intended end. Same thing here. It was clearly Immortal Man, the last panel, it's clearly not the intended end. And I hope they find a way to bring it back because I love the mythos. There's so much here that they could do. Immortal Man was one part X-Men and one part Game of Thrones. I hadn't thought about that before. I like that reference. Issues 1 through 5 tell a fantastic story and set the stage of a great first act, and then it just dies. Not due to mistakes made by the creative team, it's worth picking up to experience the roller coaster ride of the first 5 issues and then the soul-crushing sadness of the final issue, to see what could have been. Issue 6 is my favorite issue. It's the finale of the first story arc. Like, it's great. Other than the art, which was kind of rushed. I think because the artist got word ahead of time that they weren't going to go on and they were using them for other things, that he just was like, okay, I don't have I think 6 was fantastic. It had a great finale, great fight. And because it's not like it's supposed to be an ongoing thing, of course, the finale wasn't as finishing and complete as a, book-ended series would be. But very exciting. I am not hard disagreeing here, but I just think his perspective is not from the same angle. Immortal Men also has the best roster of deep and complex characters, on par or better than the Terrifics. It's what makes the cancellation and the rushed issue number 6 so much worse. Agreed. In fact, one of the great things I liked about this was not so much Jim Lee's art, which no one should ever expect Jim Lee was going to draw a monthly comic. That's just insane. I liked that he co-created the book. And every time Jim Lee co-creates something, like when he worked with Chris Claremont to take over X-Men, when he worked with Brandon Choi for Wildcats, and so forth, he's got great ideas. And I think that when he partners with other people, those ideas really flesh out. And he partnered here with James Tynion, allowed for some really great ideas and some creative mythos that I don't think either one of them separately would have come up. And I really want to see this go further. This is my favorite book. This is my darling. So yeah, I would miss it. 6 new challengers. Raptor Riders. And my boy's about to charge into battle with fists. All right. New challengers has lore ties to the old Challengers of the Unknown, and was the only miniseries announced during the New Age of Heroes. Only going 6 issues, I didn't know that. The new challengers are absolutely an example of we need to make sure our group is completely diverse for surface level reasons and optics, but doing it relatively effectively. Each character feels nuanced enough, with one exception, and there's an inter-issue character growth of the characters evolving as a result of outside stimuli, and we see how their pasts shape their current decisions. It's a very interesting book, and while not great or groundbreaking, it may be worth the pickup. There are a few twists and turns that come off as done for the sake of shock value and for comic book cliffhanger reasons. But the book comes off as well crafted and definitely worth reading for DC deep lore purists. Otherwise, New Challengers does nothing incredible, and since I highly doubt there are any Challenger Mountain completionists, most can skip this without missing too much. I did not know this was intended to be a miniseries. I never heard that. My understanding was that DC was like, no, all these books, we're backing them up, and we're not going to cancel them after. We're not going to. They even said we're not going to pull a Marvel on you, and just cancel these books. A lot of stores are very upset at what's going on. There's a whole other side that Trajan's actually not covering here, and that's the marketing to the retailers and how this was all supposed to go. And that's fine. He's not intending to cover that or anything, but it's kind of a sketchy subject, and it bothers me. Challengers is one of those books that started off meh. I only picked it up because I decided to pick up 4 of the books, and it was one of the later ones, and I was like, okay, and I like team books, so tried it out. The first couple issues was like, and then it really started picking up. Once I started seeing the lore and understanding what was going on, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I can get behind this. And where it currently is sitting is really fun. The last issue, the next issue is the last issue, so I'm guessing, this is a big finale. But it's piqued my interest. I'm definitely going, I can't wait to see what happens. I'm kind of bummed that it's going to end after that. I hope it ends in an open-ended situation so that they can be brought back. And honestly, in hindsight, I really think that how should I say? I really think that DC should have done all these as a 6-issue miniseries right from the get-go. Commit artists and say, look, we're going to commit all this to 6 issues and we're going to end it no matter how popular it is. Let all the series run their course and then sit and evaluate what was popular, what wasn't, rather than launching stuff, people thinking these books are ongoing series, and people feeling burned. I think people will commit to a 6-issue miniseries, even if it's kind of mediocre, because they're like, look, I know I only have to commit to 6 issues. So they're more likely to get all 6 issues instead of stopping at 3. Like, you don't really buy a miniseries and then go, stopping at 3. But if it's an ongoing series, you have to stop somewhere. So I think people are more likely to cut their losses earlier. So I think it would have worked better. I think the sales, and then you launch the successful ones. You go, people really like Silencer? Oh, great. Now we're going to announce Silencer gets their own ongoing miniseries. You get a whole another number 1. Big hyped relaunch. People now feel confident in the character because they've seen the miniseries before, and it's not... This is how comics used to be done, They didn't just, throw characters and be like, here's your own series. Punisher had to prove himself. That Punisher miniseries was huge. And then, even then, Marvel's like, I don't know if we want to give him his own series. Oh, funny. All right. Okay. Going into next part. Skip these. The unexpected. How dare you, Trajan? This is my second favorite of the series. How dare you? The unexpected suffers from what I feel is most blatant forced diversity of all the New Age of Heroes. And I say this as a person who ranked The Polynesian Female Assassin as the best book. Unexpected also suffers from the unfortunate fact that it was the final series to start and therefore suffers from team fatigue. Let's be honest. Out of the 8 comics, 4 are team books, and that's a little too much. Technically, this is a duo book. Not a team, buddy. This is possibly the most DC Metal connected series of the bunch, and it's extremely DC Metal lore heavy, dealing with the nth metal, but DC Metal was never popular because of the lore. DC Metal was so popular because of the Dark Universe Batman, not the background nth metal lore that no one really cared about. There's some merit to that statement. However, I think the storyline was trying to push this new nth metal lore to introduce new concepts for the DC universe as a whole that it kind of lacks. Such as another thing it lacks is a cosmic universe, the way Marvel has. So the Dark Universe Batman were one aspect, but the nth metal is another thing. And even though it wasn't the popular part, I think it's an important part. And I don't think this book suffers because of that, other than to say, you're kind of right, it gets complicated gobbledygook, and it's hard to follow, especially if you haven't followed metal, which I haven't. This is the book I put off reading the most, not because it's particularly bad, but because I just don't care about it. I will say, it does have one of the coolest new characters, but even that's not enough to keep me interested. And I think it's even worse than it just being bad. The whole series reads like this. The GPS works off a Blackhawk satellite. It'll lead you to Elig's Horde, but Firebrand, your isotope is a mystery. I'm begging you, don't follow it too far. I lost the challengers of the unknown to those mysteries. Now there are new challengers looking into the same dangerous abyss. He's not wrong. That's actually tame. Some of the stuff I read is a lot of text, and it's all nth metal this, and you created an isotope with the blah blah blah, and I'm just like, what is going on? However, I like being challenged by my books. So even though it was a little bit annoying when I put the effort into this book, and I realize he's fair, he doesn't care, he admitted. When I put the effort into this book, it actually gave back to me. And that, I was like, oh, okay, you're not a failure book. You are, if I'm willing to give you effort, you're willing to give it back to me and give me payoff, then great. What's a really crime is when I'm willing to give a comic book effort and it just lays like a dead fish. So this is a book that I think Trajan, like Immortal Men, I don't think Trajan appreciates. Some of his comments are actually fair. I think some of it's subjective. And this isn't a knock your socks off book. However, I just did a review on issue 5, and it's getting really, I mean, it's starting to get good. This is a slow burner as well. This is a book that starts off with all this gobbledygook. You can't figure out what's going on. Who are these characters? Spoiler, 2 of the characters die like immediately. It's just these 2. But I like it. It feels like an actual, like a movie, a good sci-fi movie. It doesn't feel like the typical superhero book. Like, characters are dead and they're missing. Like, you're just like, whoa, what's going on? And this whole nth metal, I'm hooked. Now they're dealing with Hawkman, and I didn't realize Hawkman's mace was an nth metal, and his whole dealings with the dark multiverse, and it's like, oh, tell me more. And it left me on this cliffhanger. So I'll be publishing my review of that real soon, so you can see what I'm talking about. This is a solid book, and I am intrigued and looking forward to the next issue. So yeah, I want more of this. I want more lore. I want less Justice League and Batman clones and more original stuff like this. Anyways, Curse of Brimstone, another one I avoided because this name here, Justin Jordan, I explained earlier. Plus, these type of characters aren't normally my cup of tea. I was never a Ghost Rider fan. So, yeah, what's he have to say? This was the book of New Age of Heroes that I was looking forward to the most. Marvel had peacefully sunsetted my Ghost Rider series with no hope in sight. So seeing the potential for badass horror superhero that looked like a darker version of Ghost Rider minus the motorcycle had me so hyped up. Philip Tan art looks great with the subject matter, which is a mix of occult and fantasy, and yet Justin Jordan manages to make it the most boring snooze fest of all time. Literally, all you had to do was not be bad at your job. Your sole job, and he couldn't do it. There are large swaths of expository text that add nothing to the story and just bog it down with Joe Chamberlain nonsense that no one cares about, and the book is paced worse than Cullen Bunn's Venomized. Alright, so just to critique you, Trajan, right here, that sentence was terrible. Who the hell is Joe Chamberlain? And what's Cullen Bunn have to do anything? Like, if you haven't read Venomized, this sentence, you should explain it in its own merit and not compare it to something else that people haven't read. Shame on you. Shame. Just kidding. Whatever. But yeah, that is true. Curse of Brimstone actually made me angry. And I don't think it's a coincidence that some of the worst issues coming out of New Age of Heroes were both written by Justin Jordan. But that could be a coincidence, right? Alright, if you enjoyed this review, follow Trajan on Twitter @TrajanChannel and get more comic reviews and news on the Trajan Channel YouTube channel here. Which I concur. I do recommend Trajan Channel. He's not as prolific as I wish he was, but, hey, he's got a real life. But do check him out. He's kind of one of the guys that inspired me to do my channel, and I wish I could do some of the things that he does as well as he does them. I think he was pretty fair overall with these books. I think Unexpected deserves to be a little higher. I'd probably put it above Challengers even. I think Immortals Men needs to be number 1 or 2. I mean, I can see Silencer being number 1 just because it's so... Immortal Men, I think, is better, but it also has flaws. Silencer is just consistent. Like, it's like, if you're in, grade school and it's like, oh, my report card is, I got like 3 A's and like 3 C's. Or the kid who just gets straight B's. That's silencer. Like, it just never does bad things, but it never really also jumps to great heights. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, but this book does. There is so much potential that is here. You're just like, oh, you could do so much more. Imagine putting a good artist on this and fleshing out this universe. Oh, well. No more crying over spilled milk. We'll see where this goes. Oh, by the way, I hate this black tee on his face. It just this is terrible. Why is DC so bad with their costumes? Seriously. Like, I have a hard time. This just looks like big, mean black guy. And we're supposed to be like breaking stereotypes here. This is the intellectual black guy. And there's got to be something better that they could do with this. Oh, I'm gonna make it doesn't even look like a T. Anyways, congrats, Trajan, on a mostly well-written article. There wasn't really anything for me to roast. Maybe one day I'll write an article about something meaningful. Who knows? You can find this on Bleeding Fool. Give them a check out, not here to plagiarize all their stuff, but I just wanted to make a stupid long-ass video and blab about New Age of Heroes. What is your favorite New Age of Heroes, and what do you think should have happened? Do you agree with Trajan? Do you agree with my comments? Do you have your own ideas and think we're both idiots? Comment below. Visit Trajan. Like, share, and subscribe. And don't forget to tell him how Ash was right and he's wrong. And I'll see you on the other side.